when I saw it, I kicked rocks at it. Okay, that was stupid. When I kicked rocks at it, the front legs came up.
Oh no.
What they tell you is that when the front legs came up, they're about to jump. They have a 3 foot vertical in any direction.
Wow, that's more than most
So
humans.
when the legs came up, I screamed. I was like, ah! And I broke out running. I was like, whew, okay, this is nothing. I turned around. It was chasing me. They moved very fast. And when I tell you I turned, it was probably a good 2 feet from me. Yeah, I freaked. So I literally ran to the point to where my heels were kicking my behind. That's not an exaggeration.
That's adrenaline, right? Yeah.
And when I got in the expandable, I jumped on my bed, and one of my roommates, to this day I don't know his name. I never knew his name. He was just, we were all just thrown together. He was like, "You okay, dude?" I was like, "Camel Spider was chasing me." He was like, "The same thing happened to me yesterday. Holy shit!" So, and I was like, he was like, "They're huge, bro. I'm gonna go back to my bed." He didn't want to go out the door in case it was there.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have a very special guest. He was born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama, the youngest of 12. He's the father of 2 children, a boy 10 and a girl 9, a 20-year retired military vet, and the founder and owner of MMET Solutions LLC. Please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Mario Ruffin. Great, man. How are you? Very, very good, right? So, Jessica, how's it going?
Good, good, good. I'm ready to roll here.
All right, so let's roll. So basically Birmingham, Alabama. Let's talk about that because I might be there for about a month. What's it like growing up in Birmingham, the youngest of 12?
It was not a lot of food. So, no, Birmingham is great. I'm one of those people that anytime someone says, "Oh man, what about," because one of the biggest things that's known about Birmingham is civil rights movement. So people ask, is it really racist? Is it this? And some of the things, yeah, but for the most part, it's just a beautiful city. It's really big, very industrial. The name came from actually Birmingham, England.
Okay.
So it's a very huge industrial city over there. And so a number of surrounding cities came from that. Brighton, which is a smaller town that I actually grew up in. Bessemer, which is another name that came from an industrialized city over in England. So I, I guess we were just obsessed with the British. I guess I don't know, but a lot of those names came from there for that reason. Um,
Yeah,
so that was one of the biggest reasons.
that's interesting. I never thought about that, but it's very true, right? And so talk about the city. I mean, has it been a long time that you've been? Because you're in Arizona now, right?
Yes, I currently reside in Arizona. I moved back to Alabama after my 20-year stint in the military. Um, thank goodness for that. But I moved back to Alabama, moved back to Birmingham for about a year, looking for a job, just trying to get settled in. My mother, who has since passed away, God rest her soul, but we moved back to help take care of her. And Birmingham is just, like I said, it's a beautiful place. Like I said, and sometimes considered the birthplace of the civil rights movement. Um, so there's a rich history when it comes out of there. And I can tell you now, there are a lot of people that come from there. A lot of their views are shaped by so much of the history that was there. And I can honestly say, so am I. It's a lot of things that when I look at around the world or when I look at around America, when people ask me about it, that template of history that comes from Alabama, that comes from living in Birmingham, it comes with me everywhere I go. So good or bad, I just have to tell people it's always with me in some way, shape, or form.
So yeah, Birmingham. So I am going to probably be there in a couple weeks, and for maybe about a month, right?
Mhm.
So you say there's rich history. What are some things that you would recommend someone new to Birmingham just to kind of? It was just super ironic that you're on the podcast, right? But what would you recommend that someone new to Birmingham is going to be in the city for a while? What would you recommend?
Definitely head to downtown Birmingham.
Okay.
There is literally a piece of everything there, especially since I left. I joined the military in '94, and going back in 2016, just the amount of changes, and I honestly have to say cultural changes. I remember when I was there, if it wasn't a fast food place or a Chinese food place or a soul food place, that was pretty much it. You go there now, there are Vietnamese restaurants, Vietnamese neighborhoods, there are Greek restaurants,
Wow.
and little pockets of areas where, mostly Greek individuals live. And you just kind of go back. For me, being the person I am, that's just like, this is great. You get to look around and you get to talk to people. You get to ask ignorant questions. You get to ask intelligent questions, to people who are around and who can give you a real insight on the culture. It's just beautiful. I love it. And they tell you how much it's grown since I've been gone. So I have people in Birmingham, oh, yeah, we built this over here. This is here. And you're like, I lived here all my life. I never knew this was here. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so so just talk about real quick before we go to the military, because I want to talk about that because you took off for 20 years, obviously your military career, right? But let's talk about being the youngest of 12. I mean, that's a pretty unique experience there. I know you mentioned there was not a lot of food. I know my brother-in-law, he comes from 8, so that's a lot, but it's not 12. But I remember he talked about, dinner table is like you're fighting to eat or else the food's gone and you don't eat. So talk about being the youngest of 12. What was that like?
It's it is literally the gambit of everything you can think of a family. Give an example. When I was born, my oldest sister was in her early 20s. So, just that age difference. And it would, growing up, I had nieces and nephews that were a year around my age. I have a niece and nephew that's actually older than me.
Wow.
So it um it was very unique. One of the things that I loved and hated about it, I had an experience that most people didn't have. I got to see siblings actually live their normal lives right in front of my face. Everything about it. It wasn't like I was in middle school and they were in high school. No, I actually got to see, when I was really, really young, I would see, how divorce affected people, and and not to down my family, but that's just the truth. A lot of people have to deal with that. I got to see how divorce or how certain arguments or how differences in age gaps can affect people in different relationships. So that gave me a unique perspective growing up that, once I hit my early 20s and I, joined the military and things like that, when people would talk about, oh man, that's not how a relationship works, this is all you have to do, I would constantly sit back and go, "Mm, no, it's not. No, it's not. I can tell you it's not. It's not that easy."
Yeah.
And I think that was the most amazing part about it, was that I was able to see not only how people grow up, but I could see grown people handle situations growing up, and they were all my siblings.
Yeah.
So, I have numerous siblings that are literally old enough to be my parents.
That's that's
So,
that's very interesting. Yeah.
when you go to, so it's a different thing when people say, oh, I go to my brother and we laugh and joke. I couldn't do that with all my siblings because some things we just didn't have in common. I'm like, okay, let me tell you about this show that I watched. They're like, that is a horrible show. You know, they were like, that show sucks. I'm like, no, it's okay. I guess it is, but then I would go to friends. I would go to my nieces and nephews, and those would be the ones I would go to relate to about certain things growing up. So it was a weird, I don't want to say dichotomy, but that's kind of the best way I can put it. It was a very weird dichotomy, but it was also enlightening and edifying as I got older, and some of the experiences that I was able to witness in my own house or amongst my siblings. I saw people just starting out doing that.
Yeah.
And they would hate it when I would refer back to them all the time. They were like, well, my sister, they're my brother, where people thought we were really close. And I'm like, well, we weren't close because it was a very big age gap. But for the most part, that's what it gave me. That's the one thing I loved about it the most.
Yeah, it seems
It
like you
kept
had a
me
lot of examples. You know what I mean? Like you saw life before you even had to live it, like right close up.
best example. You nailed it. I saw life before I even understood it to a degree. So yeah, you're exactly right.
What did that do for you? Like just seeing these examples, because they say smart people learn from their mistakes, but wise people learn from the mistakes of others. And it seems like you kind of learn from the mistakes of and the good things, obviously, of your siblings. How did that affect like your choices in your life? Did it help? Did it hurt? Was it kind of indifferent?
I made a lot of choices that were based on what I saw and not necessarily experienced, if that made sense. So that was a double-edged sword. There were certain times I could go, no, I'm not going to do that. I saw this happen before, but I really had no insight on why I would decide that, or if it was best or not best for me. I just saw the effects that it had on others, and I just go, nope, that's not for me. I'm not going to do that. And I missed out on some. I'm not ashamed to admit I missed out on a lot of great opportunities from that. But I had more situations where when I was able to, like after the event ended or after the situation was resolved and I knew what to do, I had this idea of, yeah, this could have gone really bad if I had not already had this mindset or at least had this experience there. So that was one of the things, so like I said, it's a double-edged sword, but it was, I, I'm thankful for it either way, if that makes sense. I was thankful for it either way.
Yeah.
Just to be able to say, and then hindsight is always 2020. To be able to look back and go, probably shouldn't have passed on that opportunity, or I probably could have handled this differently. But I'm thankful that above, I don't want to go up outside of how others would have done it. I had some idea of what I was getting into from the beginning.
Yeah. So
That I'll never turn that away. I love that.
yes, basically you had a lot of wisdom, but you still were able to make your own choices,
Yes,
which is good.
and that was and just kind of leading off into the military. That was one of the advantages I had, being able to when people, because I remember I have two other brothers in the military. Well, actually, three other brothers in the military. Um, and hearing, of course, like I said, just watching my family, just watching things that they did. There were certain things I was able to comprehend before I got there. You go through basic training, or it's most commonly known boot camp. When you get there and you're like, you're nothing, you're a maggot. Do you know this? I'm like, yeah, I got you. I got you. My brother told me about this. So I'm cool. I'm good. And so that sometimes it worked to my disadvantage because it seemed like I just didn't care. I was like, yeah, I know about this. You're gonna yell at me. I'm a piece of crap. I got you. So people are like, who do you think you are? I'm the youngest of 12, man. Come on now. It kind of aided in that. So sometimes it worked to my disadvantage, but other times it worked to my advantage.
Yeah.
So um, that was one of the things that happened as far as the military is concerned.
Yeah.
It gave me an unfair advantage that I didn't quite know how to utilize at the time.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So basically you had people that had already walked the path and
You're right.
kind of told you about it. So you're like, I already know what to expect, right? But then in a way, it kind of didn't allow it to mold you, I guess, as much as it's supposed to. Is that kind of the way?
It, it, well, let me say it like this: I allowed it to mold me with a level of arrogance that I did not deserve. I didn't deserve, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. It left me with a level of just that self-assured that just like you have not done anything to be able to tell people you're good. So it did make most of my career a little trying, but at the same time it humbled me too, because when you think you know so much, all it takes is one or two people to see through your BS and chop you down. But the beauty is in the military, they can't just chop you down. You're an asset. So they chop you down like, okay, let me build you up the right way. And that was the beauty of it. I had plenty of mentors, some I did not want, but I had plenty of mentors who had no problem, hey, come here. I had some guys, it's an older term, hey, young blood, come here. And when they did that, it's like, okay, I think I know you're a smart guy. I think you know what you're talking about, but you don't know what you're talking about. You know what you're talking of, not what you're talking about. And they would say that. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I know the words and I can recognize the words, but I didn't understand the premise or the meaning of the words I was saying. You know, and like I said before, when they would say, okay, well, you're a maggot, you're nothing, and I'm like, yeah. Well, what they're doing is they're getting people to understand, look, you're on the same level as everybody else. You're a nobody right now. You're wearing the same uniform. You're eating the same food. You're eating at the same time. You're sleeping in the same vicinity. You're no better than anybody else. I didn't grasp that at first. I was like, yeah, you're going to tell me that. I don't care. And I would go about my business. And there's a level of arrogance. Like I said, it's undeserved. I walked around with this arrogance. Didn't need it. And just took somebody to go, hold up, chop me down a little bit, build me back up. So there was a level of arrogance that I did get at one point, more of assertiveness. That when I would talk to younger troops, when I became the one in charge, when I would talk to younger troops, and when they did the whole yeah, I was like, oh, you're like me, you're the idiot. Okay, there you go. And that's why I said it was very humbling, especially when you had to be the one training others. It was very humbling.
Yeah. So, the military, you chose military. Was it because you had older brothers that had done it? Are you guys kind of a military family, or was there another reason why you chose the military?
All of it. But the number one reason, I didn't want to be a burden to my mother. I can honestly say that. The youngest of 12, I've seen all my other brothers and sisters literally go off and do their own thing and become successful, become contributing members of society. I had all of these great people in my life, strong Black men, strong Black women. We grew up in the church. And when it came down to me, I was like, I am going to be a burden. I'm going to be a waste of skin. And so when I didn't understand, when I didn't know what I wanted to do, I just thought about my brothers who, when they joined the military, they talked about the biggest thing, accountability and respect. I was like, I want to be accountable for what I do. I want to be, that was the biggest thing. I want to be accountable for what I do and then earn that respect, that I wanted from so many different people, from my brothers and sisters who, they were so much older than me. What I was looking for, they weren't going to give me, and they couldn't. They saw me as their child or a child, not as their brother, not as their, younger brother. I was looked at as their little brother. I didn't want to be that burden. I don't want to be that small person. I wanted to carve my place out in the world. And when I saw the military, I was like, I can do all of this and be a burden to nobody. No one has to look at me and go, what is Mario doing again? I didn't have to do that. And I can honestly say probably the greatest decision I ever made in my life.
Yeah.
That was the one, I learned accountability. I learned respect for others and respect for myself, respect for this beautiful country. So I had nothing to complain about.
Yeah, it kind of seems like the military, like you said, since everybody's kind of equal, it gave the baby of 12 the equal playing field with everybody else, but also kind of an advantage too, because you kind of knew a little bit more than someone who was completely green to the military and didn't have no family or no mentors about what to expect.
Right. And my worldview, one thing I loved about it, it shaped my worldview to a point to where, it'll never be the same. I remember, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with this term, but when I told people in the neighborhood that I was going to join the military, like, oh, you're going to join that white man's army. That was always the term, white man's army, white man's army. And I know a lot of listeners may hate this, to some degree it's true because it's predominantly white. That's just, the world we live in. The military is predominantly white. But I learned that even among people who, even they may look different than you, there are differences even among that. I rarely knew of people within the white race that were in that had different political ideas amongst themselves. I rarely saw that. But when I joined the military, it was everywhere. people who believe this and believe that and believe something totally different. Yet I never had to question their respect for who I was or what I was doing.
Yeah, because you guys are a
You know,
team, right? Like
you
if you
you
don't,
have to.
it's life and death if you don't respect each other, right?
That's exactly what I would tell people. I told people all the time. I said, I don't care how many core values you can spit out. There's one value that if you lose this, we're done. This whole military collapses. They were like, "What's that, Sergeant Ruffin?" I said, "Respect. If you don't respect yourself, what you're doing, and the person you're working with, we're done. We might as well just all pack up and go back home." I said, "We're done." And they would just kind of look for a second. I said, when you're out there in 130-degree weather, that's not an exaggeration. We've done it. 130 degrees, no one's come by to check on us with the water because they're checking on so many different other people. When all of that happens, if you don't respect the fact that I have to get this done, I'm held accountable for what I do. This is, they're looking for me to take care of this. I have to do my part. I have to respect my part in this vast, worldwide military that's understood to be the greatest in the world. Yeah, I probably need to fix this aircraft. And that's where it came from. That guy in finance. People say, "Oh, you don't do anything. You're not a maintainer. Don't get paid." Let's see how important their job is. Or the guy that works at the dining facility where all of the younger airmen would eat. You mess up that food, you're going to get people sick. You have to respect and have an understanding of your part in that great machine. So that was one of the things that I think if you don't have respect, you're done. The, all of this falls apart.
Yeah, and the military is a brotherhood, right? So in the end, like obviously a lot of people have different beliefs, but if it's not a brotherhood, like if there's no respect, then I mean,
Mhm.
it's not going to work.
No, it's not. You just put it simply that way. It's a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood, it's a mentoring program. It's everything. No, no. When you ask the question, "Am I my brother's keeper?" In the military, we say, "Hell yeah, I am, and I have to be because if I don't keep my brother won't keep me. If I don't keep my sister won't keep me." Do I look after them? Yes, and they'll look after me. And that's where that respect comes in. You have to respect your part in that whole thing. You have to respect their part in it. I have military people, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I cannot stand them. I do not want to be around them. I have no desire to. But if I hear they're in town and they need something, I have to jump up. I don't know if you remember the old cartoon Mighty Mouse. He would just yell out, "Here I come to save the day." That's what I felt like I've had to do that. I've been somewhere and hear from another military member that another military member is somewhere near and needs help. My first question is, where are they? It could be something I do not like, and I've done it before more than once. Someone I don't want to be around, I don't want to have a conversation with, but it's that instinct that we're all on a level playing field. And if that brother or that sister is stuck somewhere and they have nowhere to go, and you sit on your behind, knowing you served with them, maybe not beside them, but you were both military. Yeah, it's not gonna work. It's just not gonna work. So that sense of camaraderie stays with
What branch of military were you a part of? And do you think that
you.
the brotherhood reaches across every branch, or because I know sometimes, like I've had a friend that was a Marine, and he would, say, we're better than the Army, blah blah blah. Do you think the brotherhood, that respect, is within every branch?
Yes, I have experienced it. I have done it myself. I have worked with Marines, Navy, and Army. Not so much Coast Guard, but I've worked with those three branches on more than just a interpersonal, I'll help you out guy level. I've, you know, helped out whole battalions, whole squads. And so you don't, we talk a lot of trash. There's a meme that's out there, and it's a Goodfellas meme. And it said, it shows the top where they're all laughing, and they said service members talking about each other. And they're all laughing and joking, and yada yada. And at the bottom it says, when civilians talk about us. And they're all serious looking at the camera like, hey, it really is like that. You will hear talk about grunts and jarheads, those are Army and Marines. They'll talk trash about each other, especially the Navy and Marines. Talk mad trash about each other. We're fly boys, or we're the chair force, because they say we don't do anything. But let someone else step in. Hey, when I was over at such and such, they were here to do this and blah, blah. You're like, oh my God, you were just talking trash about it. Well, brothers and sisters, I grew up in a family of 12. We can all talk about each other. Let somebody else from the outside talk trash. And it's going to be hell to pay.
Yeah, and you said you were part of the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do with the Air Force?
I was an electronic warfare technician.
Wow.
Basically, the simplest way I can put it, if you've ever seen Top Gun and they're flying and you hear them say, oh, I've been locked on, I have a bogey in this direction, blah, 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 and they shoot out what they call countermeasures, you'll see a flare. That's usually what they talk about. To divert the missile, that was my job.
Wow. Okay, so you were a Top Gun back when Top Gun was going on.
Yeah. So
did that influence you to join the Air Force? The movie?
I'm gonna tell you, it did not. But once I joined and I saw what I was doing and how it contributed to the pilots, it was one of those like, this is pretty cool. And so that shaped how I respected what I did. I was like, wow, there are pilots that would not be coming home if I don't do my job.
Right.
And that's just the truth of it. I don't mean to over glorify it, but I just like, so whenever I went out there and they were like, hey, they're not getting signals in this area. They're not reading this. They're not reading that. They're not getting this on their scope. I was like, this guy's gonna die. So and you have to think of that, so when I have the airmen, that's what you call the younger guys that's actually in their rank, airman first class, airman basic, yeah, they're the ones learning. But when you're trying to teach them something and they had the attitude like I did, yeah, nobody, you're like, get over here and sit down. Let me show you what's going on. These guys put their lives in our hands. I don't want to hear yeah. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
So I have a question. So you started in '94. That was around Desert Storm. Was Desert Storm still going on, or had it just ended around then?
Yes, I actually got 2 tours over there.
2 tours of Desert Storm. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where you're talking about the 130-degree heat?
Well, yeah, it is. And we're not. I remember, and people think I'm joking. I was working on one of the aircraft. I was working on an A-10 at the time. It's an attack aircraft. If you've ever seen G.I. Joe, the original ones, that the model of their Cobra aircraft was modeled after the A-10. But I'm up there and I'm working, and it's about 11:30 at night around that time. I'm sweating because it's still hot. I mean, well, I shouldn't say hot. It's colder, but it still has like a humidity to it. So I'm out there working. I'm like, I'm cold and I'm sweating. This sucks. And the guy walked up. He was like, hey, man, Happy New Year. Looked at my watch. That's how I spent my New Year. I was working on an aircraft. He was like, Happy New Year, brother. And he walked off. I was like, this sucks. I finished up the aircraft, went inside. They had some ginger ale, sitting there ready for it. So I got inside about 1:15, something like that. And they were like, hey, man, grab some. Happy New Year. And gave me a hug and everything. None of these guys that I like. They suck. They were like, Happy New Year. And they gave me a hug. And we just sat around and BS'd until the sun came up. Well, we were still at work, but we had gotten everything done. And we just talked about our families. We talked about who we miss. At the time, I didn't have kids. And we talked about everything. Just a bunch of guys from all these different backgrounds. Some we didn't like, some we loved. And we just spoke for like 4 hours and laughed and joked and drank ginger ale. I think that trip I was in Kuwait.
Wow.
I was actually in Kuwait, yeah.
I mean, it sounds like not the funnest. Like someone would think a great New Year, but it sounds like it ended up being a pretty memorable New Year for you.
It was, and that's why I tell people that type of camaraderie. When you hear a fellow service member needs something, it's hard to kind of go, nah, yeah, whatever, because you're thinking, man, we sat down, we spent New Year's in a desert together. We did this, we did, how can you turn your back on somebody you've done all that with, or that has been through that?
Exactly. So I have a
So
question. You know those big giant like spider-like things that they say they attach to the bottom of camels? That
Camel Spiders.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see those when you were out there?
Yes, I got chased by one.
What? Tell us about
I got
that.
chased. This is probably the worst. This is gonna make me sound like such a punk, but it's the truth. This is my first deployment, and I was walking back to my they call them expandables. It's like a tent, but it looks more like an accordion. They pull it apart and they put the beams up top and on bottom from the state expanded, and that's what you lived in. Yeah, that was it. Um, just enough for 4 people and a couch. That was it. Now it sounds so depressing, but we were like, whew, good, not a tent. So, we were happy back then. I was walking back to my expandable, and they had rocks on the ground because rocks actually help keep roaches and ants and things like that from building living areas to where they don't get in the tents and they don't get in the expandables. So it was rocks all over the place. And so when you hear it, it's almost like you're walking on crushed ice the whole time. Most annoying sound in the world, but they didn't sound right. So I turned, and it was probably about this big.
Mm-mm.
Well, they tell us, they give us an abundance of information when we get there about these things. Because even though they're not poisonous, if they get on you, they'll inject a chemical that numbs the part of your body, and then they can just eat away, and you won't feel it. Well, they do that. That's how they do to camels. To
That's some
camels.
real life alien shit right there.
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
The story gets better. So when I saw it, I kicked rocks at it. Okay, that was stupid. When I kicked rocks at it, the front legs came up.
Oh no.
What they tell you is that when the front legs came up, they're about to jump. They have a 3-foot vertical in any direction.
Wow, that's more than most
So
humans.
when the legs came up, I screamed. I was like, ah! And I broke out running. I was like, whew, okay, this is nothing. I turned around. It was chasing me. They moved very fast. And when I tell you I turned, it was probably a good 2 feet from me. Yeah, I freaked. So I literally ran to the point to where my heels were kicking my behind. That's not an exaggeration.
That's adrenaline, right? Yeah.
And when I got in the expandable, I jumped on my bed, and one of my roommates, to this day I don't know his name. I never knew his name. He was just, we were all just thrown together. He was like, "You okay, dude?" I was like, "Camel Spider was chasing me." He was like, "The same thing happened to me yesterday. Holy shit." So, and I was like, he was like, "They're huge, bro. I'm gonna go back to my bed." He didn't want to go out the door in case it was there. So yes, they are huge. I had one story, and I kind of hate telling this story. We had a guy who was afraid of spiders and didn't tell anyone,
Oh no.
and he stepped on a nest and they crawled up his back.
Of camel spiders?
Yeah,
Oh.
Oh my god.
he froze. He was petrified. They had to send him home.
Oh.
He was. I remember the guy who was telling me the story, because I wasn't there for it. Was telling me the story. He said, "When I tell you that guy froze," he said, "you'd have thought he looked into the eyes of Medusa." He went and stopped. He was that terrified. He just froze. And they had so the guy was knocking the spiders off of him, and he was still like this, and the guy was knocking the spiders off of him and getting them into the, calling some of the med techs and getting out there. Yeah, they sent him home like a day later.
Wow. That guy's
He,
traumatized.
he was, and we were all just like, he sat on a nest. And they're like, yeah. And he didn't feel it. He did like this. He was like, man, why does he keep twitching? And when he turned, he saw the legs come over the guy's shoulder. He was like,
Oh, hell no.
he went to go tell him. The guy went, he said that was it.
Of course,
He
it's
was
the
like, why
guy
is this
that's
guy
afraid of
moving?
spiders.
He was slapping off the spiders. He said, the guy was like, yeah, it was it.
Oh man, that is crazy. Wow, so they are real and they are real scary and real nasty.
Because they're not exactly spiders. That's the thing about it. They're actually part of the scorpion family.
Mm.
Gotcha.
Worse.
So, but they're not venomous. You know, if they bite you, that part of your body's going to go numb. It's going to swell up, you know, because you were bitten. But they're not poisonous. Well, not the species that we encountered. I've heard there are some poisonous ones. I never researched it, so I don't know.
There's
But the
some
ones we
poisonous
when
ones of those.
I've heard it, but I've never seen them, and I've
Mm.
never researched it. So, but I can tell you some of the Saudis actually, when I was in Saudi Arabia, they're there too. They showed us pictures of camels. Some of the guys who were Saudis in there, and they showing us pictures. I'm like, is that camel have a dent in its leg? He's like, yeah, can't race anymore. Blah blah blah. I was like, are you serious? One, the whole stomach fell out.
Oh.
The camel's stomach, like it basically was disemboweled
Yeah.
from how it was eaten, and it just anyway. I know it's disgusting, but that's one of the things. It was, yeah. So when you and I said all that to say this, when you live experiences like that with people, it is hard not to come away with a level of camaraderie.
Hell yeah.
You know, the looks on your guys' faces now, I don't get the looks from them. They're like, yeah. You know, it's like, holy crap. And they're like, yeah, I remember that. You have ladies that were like, yeah, I had one in the shower with me. We were like, oh, good night, huh? And we're joking about it. We tell anybody else, they're like, I'd have freaked out. She's like, no. When you're going to fall and bust your face in the shower. So what you do is you grab something and knock it out. You're like, and you get back to it. Yeah. We've only got a 5-minute shower, guys. Don't scream too hard, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, that is crazy, man. Well, those some good stories, but there's some word for it or some term when you share a traumatic experience with somebody, there's a bond that happens and you survive it. Basically, there's a special bond that happens. I forgot what it's called.
They used to teach it to us too. I completely forgot it. But yeah, you end up having it's relationships that are that come out of traumatic situations. And some people say they don't last. I've never seen that, in all honesty. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I have seen people who got married after a traumatic situation. I've seen people who just end up as best friends. And even if they don't talk all the time or certain things they don't talk about, there is a bond there. It's always there. Now, I personally have not been through anything that I feel is that traumatic. That's just me. But I've seen it. I have. I've seen what it'll do to a person. I've seen people get divorced not because they don't love their family, but they don't think they're worthy of their family because of the traumatic experience they went through.
Right.
So to say that that it doesn't build bonds, yeah, it does. There are certain connections that once it's made, it's never going to break.
Right. And this is something that I guess only those that were in the military and were there can share. So it's like a special thing that only you guys can share with each other.
It's not so much that only we can share, but only we can understand.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. And I don't mean to sound that to be just to play on semantics, but I say that in the sense of I want people to talk to more military and get the story at that person's discretion. Don't go to them, like, hey, you got to tell us your story. He doesn't want, he or she may not want to discuss that at the time. But there's certain experiences that even though we're sharing it, people may not understand it. They're just sitting there and they're going, oh yeah, I get that. I get pretty much how I did, yeah, I get it. No, you've heard it before. You don't get it. Sit back and listen. Listen to these, some of my brothers and sisters in arms, they're going through things that they left decades ago, but it's still with them. So when you ask for them to tell their story, give them time. Give them a second. Not everything is like, hey, I know I've spoken to guys who were in Vietnam. And when they're ready to tell their story, they still do that 1,000-yard stare. I have sat in a room with guys who I had one guy from, he knew one of the first chief master sergeants of the Air Force. It's the highest rank you can ever achieve as an enlisted person in the Air Force. and he knew the first guy who achieved it. And he was telling me about his experience in Vietnam and what he went through and how things he had to do that, uh, let's say, I think he'd rather have never lived, but he did. And he would sit back and he was like, yeah. And when he got there, we were just like, oh, he's not with us right now. This man, he is back where he does not want to be, but he's telling us this story. And it just got to a point where we were like, it never leaves you. It never leaves you. And the fact that he was able to talk about it, I remember all of us, it was about 5 of us he was talking to. We were quiet. We were just, you could have heard a gnat fart, as they would say. And when he kind of snapped out, he was like, yep, but I got a lot of great memories and met a lot of great people. And we were like, ooh, you can say that after that? Yeah. But that's why I say we can share it, but when you're talking to people that understand it, it's a totally different story.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I have a question. So you were in Desert Storm. Were you also in the next war with Iraq and Afghanistan and all that? Because you did serve till 2016. You're only 5 years out of the military.
Yeah, I went in support of that as well.
Wow.
Not as, for me, not as scary as the first one. The first one we dealt with Saddam. That was, I remember having to be held over. Well, I've been held over a few times actually, but I remember having to be held over because intel, well, I'll just say that, pointed to him doing some nefarious things, and they were like, yeah, instead of transitioning, because your weakest point is, during the transition period, they were like, so instead of transitioning, we're going to stay here. We were like, what? They were like, yeah, we're not going to transition. We're going to stay here. We're going to handle business. And then when it's safe, we'll transition out. So I'm going to miss Thanksgiving again. Yes, you are. And maybe Christmas.
Wow.
And maybe Valentine's Day. I was like, this is not going well, man. So, yeah. And honestly, you had people that miss the birth of their children, miss their anniversary, miss the death of their parents, miss the death of their grandparents, things like that. They'll send you home for like the death of your grandparents, but then it's like, am I gonna go home and be able to be with, my family, or should I be here? And people made a hard decision to stay. Because they were like, if I stay here, will my mind be here? Yep, then let me stay. If I can't be of use to my brothers and sisters here, then I'll go home. But if I can, I'm gonna stay. And a lot of men and women made the hardest decision I would ever think of, to stay and serve.
Mm-hmm.
While we were over there, some of the guys who were like, yeah, man, and they're walking around chipper and happy and laughing. And, you tap on the shoulder, you good, man? You good? And either they're going to go, yeah, or you're going to hear, no. And like I said, you sit there and you listen. You sit back, you grab some ginger ale with them or grab some tea or whatever, because we can't drink over there. You can't drink alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time. And you listen. And you understand, because now you're thinking, yeah, I'm missing this, I'm missing that, blah, blah, blah. They're missing a funeral. You just shut up and listen. So yeah, it definitely sticks with you in ways like that. Yeah.
And so you served in the whole, I don't even know what this last war, it was basically after 9/11 and then, Afghanistan and the Taliban.
Well, we measured by campaign.
Okay.
So it was Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Northern Defense. But that was all in the same area. We just had different campaigns going on in that area.
So which campaign were you a part of during the second war?
I was Operation Enduring Freedom for the most part.
Okay. And so my question to you is, because obviously we just pulled out basically of Afghanistan, which is very controversial, right? And there's opinions on both ends, and I heard a really good opinion as far as from a guy named Patrick Bet David, who has his own podcast as well. He's from Iran. Him and his family are refugees from Iran. And his point of view was like, once you go there, you can never leave, because do you close a jail down? Like, do you ever close a prison down? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then there's the other view where obviously, that wasn't it was never our issue in the beginning. It's like, let them be, let them do their thing. As someone who is former military, as someone who has served, as someone who's been there, and even fought camel spiders and all kinds of other stuff, right?
Mhm.
What's your kind of just, I guess, view on take on us pulling out of Afghanistan and now the Taliban kind of taking over real quick? And what's your point of view on the whole situation that went down over there?
Um, it's like amputating a leg without anesthetic,
Okay.
an infected leg. Oh, it's gonna hurt regardless. But there's certain things that need to be done. Now, were there better ways to do it? Not gonna doubt. Yeah, that's undeniable. And that's the best example I can give. Is amputating an infected leg without anesthetic. It had to be done. Were there better ways to do it? Did we wish we did it differently? Yes. Did it have to be done? Yeah, yeah, it did. Um, and I don't mean to say that as a cop out to not giving a real answer, but I'll give you a better example. When I was in Kuwait, I remember talking to the Kuwaiti Air Force guys, and they would, whenever the A-10 flew overhead, they would laugh and point up. And I asked him, I said, well, why are you pointing to that? He said, and he explained to me in the best way he could. He was like, when the A-10 would fly over when Iraq invaded them, the A-10 would destroy their tanks and their bunkers and all of that. And the Iraqi guys would jump to the ground. So whenever because the A-10 is a very quiet aircraft. So as it flew over, when they saw that shadow going across the ground, they scattered. So if you ask the Kuwaiti people, well, should we leave? They're going to say, hell no. They're going to say we should have been there. We should have stayed there. If you ask some of the Iraqi people, they're going to say no, because I lost so many family members during the bomb. So I can't be the one to say, I can't look at it just from the American point of view of like, oh yeah, it was all perfect. It was great. We did this, or, oh yeah, we should never have been there. What I will say is that there are whole swaths of people that were happy we were there and those that weren't happy. But as far as us as the military, there could have been a better way we left.
Yeah, I like that answer. I like the analogy a lot.
It had to happen.
Yeah, and honestly, from my point of view, when the war started, I didn't even wonder. I was like, why is this even happening? Like, it's not even our war to begin with, right? But it's kind of like, America's famous for always getting involved in other places. A lot of times when there's a financial interest involved, right? Because there's other parts of the world that we could get involved in to help people, and we don't, right? But that's not the topic of the subject. But I think it's kind of like, yeah, I think your analogy was best. I mean, we stuck our leg in, it got infected, and you have to amputate it, or the rest of the body's gonna end up probably getting infected and die, right?
And it was going to get worse. And I don't mean to say that in the sense of it was that region's fault, because I don't have the knowledge to say definitively what the problem was.
Right.
We could talk about weapons of mass destruction. We talk about never being there. All of those things play a huge factor. But when it comes to just getting out, it was gangrene and it was spreading.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what we could do.
Yeah.
I don't know what we could have done.
I think I understand what you're saying, and the situation we're in now is like, okay, we went in even though we shouldn't have, or maybe we should have, who cares, whatever. Mm-hmm. Where it is now, it had to be done. You know what I mean? And
it did.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I said, and I'll never disagree with the fact that it could have been done differently. Of course, yes. You had Afghan individuals who were, holding on to planes. They did that for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people are like, oh my God, they're crazy. No, and that's where, you know, growing up in the South and hearing about certain things that people did during civil rights to get away,
Right.
we had that opportunity. They didn't. So when you just look, oh, they're crazy, trying to jump onto a plane. No, they weren't. They were desperate.
Right.
A lady who will give her baby to a service member. I don't know if you have children, but when you get to a point to where you're like, I will give my children away so they cannot deal with the mess that I know for a fact I'm gonna have to deal with. Well, you know, so that's why I say it could it have been done differently? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but how much longer do you wait while it infects, you know, and it gets worse and worse and worse?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you have a whole country overrun by a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
It was spreading. So it is nothing. At some point, you had to make a decision on, do we stick around here or do we fix another mess that we've made?
Right.
You know,
And isn't the biggest I don't know the word, I have the word, but the reason they hate us the most is because we are in their land. I think that's kind of like the thing, like we're occupying what they feel is we shouldn't be there. Does that make
that's
sense?
let me say this. That's a huge misconception.
Oh, is
And
it? Okay.
yeah. No, the hate doesn't come from occupation. It comes from behavior.
Okay.
Certain policies that they put in place once we were there, because us as the military members, we're only doing what we're told.
100%.
Um,
I want to make sure we knock on that, because you guys are just the ones doing your job, right? It's the leadership
we
that sends
we
you
held up
guys.
our hands,
Yeah.
took our oath, and we said, "This is how long. You know, this is what we're going to do. Defend our enemies, foreign and domestic. Blah blah blah." We have said that.
And thank
I
thank you
know.
for your service, by the way, and all the military members out
Oh,
there.
thank you. No problem. Thank you so much. I know how many um, foreign nationals I've come in contact with. No animosity, no anger. But they'll tell us, you know, but my cousin up the street whose house was raided and blah, blah, blah. Now he's pissed.
Mm.
He's not coming at me, you know, oh, you dirty American. No, but he is thinking about his family members, his friends, his, you know, people he truly respected, uh, pillars of his neighborhood who were mistreated or who had something unfair happen to them. And he's telling me in hopes that, look, y'all supposed to be here helping us, and this is how we feel. This is what's going on. So I can tell you from it isn't merely being there, it's how we conduct ourselves while we're there.
Yeah, and then we're talking about terrorists too. These are like extreme people of any culture, right? Like we have extremists here, and you talked about the
Yeah.
civil rights movements, right? Like the racism and all that was not like a normal person. That was an extreme person, right? Um, that's abusing some type of ideology, right? Or they've been taught for years and years and generations, right? Ignorance or whatever you want to call it. But when we talk about like Taliban and stuff, that's like an extreme version hiding behind, I guess, the Muslim religion and the Quran, right? Or they're just operating like Old Testament versus New Testament, right? It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
haven't, they're operating in very old school type ways, and they're using it to their advantage, where women are basically worthless, and the men are dominant, and you have to abide by these certain rules.
Well, yes and no. Because understand there are women that wear their hijab, they wear their burqa, they wear all of that. They want to.
Hmm.
Some. I'm not trying to sell this, image here. Everybody's happy. But some of them, that shows their devotion and their commitment to Allah or their God. I'm not gonna knock that. Because just like I wouldn't walk up to a nun and say, "Why are you wearing that?" I wouldn't walk up to a priest and be like, "Bro, that's a dress." You look like whose ass you gonna kick? So to look at it and just think, because they're wearing this, I know women here. They've come to America. They've left Afghanistan. They've left Saudi Arabia, wherever. A lot of that they still wear. That's their now. It's their personal choice. I respect that regardless. Where I have the issue is that I'm not trying to go on much of a soapbox, but where I have an issue is that there's an old Goody Mob song where Big Gipp says, it's like walking in my house and not wiping your feet on the rug. That's, I feel like, regardless who's a terrorist or regardless what country we go into, don't walk into the house and not wipe your feet on the rug.
Gotcha.
That's, what you do is what you're held accountable for. That's an accountability piece and respect. So worry about what you could have done differently first, because those are the only actions you control. Those are the only actions you control. And so when we talk about, well, this is infested with terrorists. Yeah, but they're still not your house. The way you walk in there, the way you behave, the way the policies that you implement that shape how we conduct ourselves, that should be the most important thing. That's me, because we are held accountable for what we do, not for what others do.
Right. So my last question, and then we could switch gears, is do you think us as a nation is safer, less safe, or kind of neutral with the current situation that's going on now in Afghanistan that we're gone?
I think it's worse because we're almost back where we started.
Okay.
I don't see the situation. Okay, the Taliban is where they were when we overran them.
Yeah.
The government is, the president left. he was like,
yeah, he
all right,
bounced.
no, I'm good. I did all I could. I'm good. What's different than when we first were like, we're going to go over there and, take down the Taliban.
Yeah.
Then I think we basically did 20 years of, now we're back where we started.
Yeah. And my biggest thing about what happened and how it went down is that you have a whole entire generation of people that did not know what's happening now. Like an entire democratic 20 years of Afghanistan, or somewhat democratic, right? And now it's like, it would be like going back to the civil rights movement of the 60s. Like all the progress that we made for all these 40 years would just be wiped out. And now we're back to where we were back in Birmingham.
I've been in Afghanistan with that guy who was telling me, hey, why don't y'all act right? I'm like, hey, can you move over, Malik? I need to lay down. It would be horrible. But yeah, that's the best example I can give.
Yeah. Well, let's just hope that everything works out for the best, right? And we do appreciate your service, and I know it seems like you've had some pretty interesting experiences that have molded you, in the military.
Yes.
Any other places that you traveled besides the Middle East, or was it mainly the Middle East because that's the time that was happening when you were in the military?
Oh wow. Greece, Japan, Canada, England, Korea, Italy. I think I said Italy. Italy. That's it.
That's one of the
Cool.
beauties, though, of being in the military. You do get to travel a lot.
Oh, and then of course Kuwait, Saudi, Qatar. Yeah. So I've been a little bit everywhere.
What was your favorite destination or your favorite country that you visited being in the military?
Japan by far.
Really?
Japan was we were in I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, which is, I call it the south of Japan, because they're so hospitable. And when it comes to cooking food, and it just the way they put their all into it, when they're crossing the street, everybody's just polite and everybody talks to each other. I was just like, what? It's amazing, So Okinawa, Japan, by far, hands down. I'd move there. It was great.
Wow,
that's
great. Big to say you'd move there. Wow.
Yeah, it was great. It really was. It was a great experience. Great people. Yeah, great.
Yeah, I've never been to Japan yet. I want to go. I just heard it's beautiful. I heard it's exactly like how you said. And so, Southern hospitality, that's something I hear about all the time. I've been to Texas, but since I am going to Birmingham, or I might be potentially a good chance, Is that what I have to expect? Is that good old Southern hospitality?
For the most part, yeah. You're gonna get called sweetie, baby, hun, sugar, pumpkin, not pumpkin, pumpkin.
Oh,
You're
pumpkin.
gonna get called all of those things, and it's gonna be about people that don't even know you. Pumpkin, can you grab that for me? And you kind of want to, yes, ma'am, I will.
You're like, you can't help but not, right?
You really can't. Um, it's just a lot of phrases and terms you're gonna hear that I can honestly say, and people say, well, Southern and country are the same thing. No, they're not. Anybody can be country. Very few people can be Southern. And like it's a beautiful Southern hospitality. This is the best way I can put it. It's not just about being nice. It's about trying to stay nice as well. Because you'll hear some Southern guys tell you, you might want to go on now. You might want to go on about your business. That's Southern hospitality. That's their way of saying you're about to get your ass
Yeah, that's
whooped.
like a warning, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And when you hear that, when you hear go on now, go on now. Oh no, that's part of Southern hospitality. You about to get slapped. It's not gonna be good. Or if you hear somebody say, all right, now I don't think you need to do it. I don't think you need to do that. That's part of it. So they're trying to be hospitable to this is about to go bad for you.
Right.
If you hear a woman say, bless his heart, that's just like saying this idiot. so, so if you hear, that's the way you hear, because you can also hear, oh, bless your heart. It's
Mm.
like that was horrible, but they don't want to say it to make it worse. So they're like, oh, bless your heart. but yeah,
Yeah.
but if you hear, bless his heart, yeah, that idiot.
Yeah. It's kind of it's you explained it perfectly. It's a polite way of saying something
Mhm.
that's not polite.
But a lot of people mistake it as if like, it's just so nice. It's like, no, we're polite, not nice. There's a difference. We're considerate.
Yeah.
So if you leave that alone, leave that alone. Yeah, leave it alone.
Hmm. And that's
My,
funny. You mentioned they give you a warning right before they're about to kick your ass or something gonna happen. You get a
if
warning.
you're reason irate, hey, you might want to stop that. You might want to let that go.
So I have a question because when you were singing earlier, I heard like a nice little tone to the voice. Like, do you
Mhm,
have a little
mhm.
bit of a talent in the singing department?
I grew up in the church.
Okay.
I sang everything. So going through puberty and going through everything, I was still forced to sing. So I'd be like, God. Like
That's
that's
the
the
worst when you're going through puberty and they force you to
yeah.
talk or
But
sing.
no, I grew up in a musical family.
Okay.
So we all had some type of whether they played the uh piano or singing. It was one of the two, or drum.
What was yours?
Mine was just singing. I sucked. I was in a band at
Hmm.
school. So I played saxophone there. But when it came to being at home, I was like, nah, I just like to sing. So I had all these R&B artists from, the early 90s and the late 80s that like I would have you could have amputated my gangrene leg without anesthetic to get to sing like them. Um, Gerald Levert, Aaron Hall, Teddy Pendergrass, Luther Vandross,
Yeah.
all of these amazing voices.
Yeah, I grew up in the '90s. So for me, it was Luther Vandross, Keith Sweat, Jodeci. Yeah, well, Jodeci
And
was the biggest one.
then, no, you're speaking my language now. So yeah, and whenever I would hear them, those Drew Hill, even Boys to Men,
Oh, Boys to
these
Men. Yeah.
voices that just they resonated, not only their voice but the words and the songs. So yeah, there's certain times my kids are laughing at me. They'll just like put their hands over here. They're like, "Daddy, you too loud." So but those are the things I used to love. Just singing with those groups. I used to love it.
So do you actually sing still, or is it just kind of a talent you've had with you since you were young?
Uh, I've gotten into it more now. I stopped for a long time because just fatherhood, being a husband, military, school. The only time I was singing is in the car by myself. After a while, just to kind of calm down. Um, but outside of that, now my daughter, she phenomenal.
Yeah.
And she's 9.
Wow.
and she'll get to sing. She's like me, but the other end of the spectrum. She's Pink and Alicia Keys, Demi Lovato. Oh God, who just these booming, amazing voices, and she'll sing with them. Like I don't know if you know, "This Is Me" by Kiala Settle from the Greatest Showman soundtrack. Me and her sing that together, you know, and that's one of my inspirational songs. It just gets me in there, or like Pink, anything by Pink, it doesn't matter. Pink can just walk around humming the ABCs, and I'm like, genius,
Yeah.
you know.
Pink is very talented, by the way.
Oh, she's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love the fact that my daughter can enjoy singing artists that kind of remind me of the artists I grew up singing. And I kind of grew up singing with Pink too. Pink has been out for over 20 years. No
Yeah.
one thinks it until now. They're like, really? Yeah. Her first album was like in 95 or 96. Yeah, something like that.
It's
So Pink has been, I'm sorry, not 90, excuse me, 99, excuse me. Yeah, like her first album was like 99 or something like that.
that's still
So,
22 years ago
yeah,
or
so she's
21.
been out for a long time and still has such a phenomenal
Mhm.
voice. So yeah. So it's those singers who I just sit back and I'm like, wow, it's beautiful. But yeah, she loves to sing and so do I.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. I love it.
So let's switch gears here. MNet Solutions, right? This is your business. Talk about it. What do you do? How do you help people? And what people can reach out to you for with MNet Solutions.
It's actually pronounced Met.
Oh,
M
sorry.
M E. Oh, no problem, no problem. Pronounced MMET, Met. And what we do is, I mean, of course, ever since the 2008, financial crash, small businesses have been hurting. You have banks that don't want to loan to certain businesses for whatever they find on the credit report. Um, Met Solutions, our goal is to make sure that you don't feel left out from that. We don't want you to go to, and I don't want to name any banks because I don't want to give anybody free publicity, but you don't want to go to more traditional banks and beg for a loan and beg for literally months to sometimes get somewhere. Uh, we take away some of that pain by offering alternative funding. We have a vast array of lenders that are lenders and investors who are ready at a moment's notice to say, "Hey, let's start this. Let's help you start this business, or sustain your business, or expand your business." So we offer things such as lines of credit, secured and unsecured. So secured, of course, you have to put something up. Um, Not something you have to do, but we offer that. We also offer, one of our biggest draws are merchant cash advances, or what they call MCAs. And a lot of people don't really know what that is, but what an MCA is, merchant cash advance, a lender will come to you and say, "Hey, how much revenue do you make a month?" And whatever, whether it be $2,000 or $2 million, they'll say, "Okay, we will give you funding, and how you will pay us back is that we will take a percentage of your revenue, whether it be daily, weekly, or monthly." So they're basically buying your future revenue. That way, it isn't going to. And so, what I think is the best benefit to that, you'll never overextend yourself. If they're only going off of the revenue that you got coming in, then whatever goes out isn't going to hurt as much as if you go to a bank and you're like, "I want $3 million. Well, how much do you make? 2,000 a month." Good. Your credit, no, your credit rating can mess that up easily.
Yeah. You're never going to get a payment that you can't afford, basically.
Right. So it goes off the revenue of your business. I call it the strength or the profile of your business.
Okay.
So if your business is strong enough, if it has enough revenue, you've been in business long enough. And it differs depending on everybody's financial situation. But depending on the strength of your business and how long depending on how long you've been in business, everything else, then we can find a lender that suits you best. One thing I try to get people to understand is that sometimes what we call rates, but it's an interest rate, the fees. It's You can equate it to interest rates on loans. A lot of people look at now MCAs have higher interest rates. They're not we don't call them interest rates. They're just fees. But when you go to get an MCA, and when they look at some of those fees, they're like, oh my God, these are high. Well, one, those fees are 100% tax deductible. 100%. So anything over the amount that you borrowed is tax deductible, period. And it's tax deductible every year that you have it.
Wow.
So if it's 2 years in a row, it's tax deductible every year.
So companies can
Also,
write off their fees.
yeah, you can write off all the fees associated with that MCA. Another thing with it, not only can you write off all of those fees, but let's say you're in a bind and your business is hurting. You don't want to close your doors. You got like maybe a month left. You can't do payroll. That's exactly what the MCA is for. We can get you funded within 24 hours
Wow.
from the time that you're approved to the time, and I don't mean funded like they tell you you'll get the money, from the time you're approved to the time the money is deposited into your bank account, 24 hours.
Wow.
Now, other lenders may go a little longer to 72 hours, but yes, you're not talking about weeks or months. We're talking days or literally hours, basically, with an MCA.
Wow.
Another great advantage to an MCA, like I said before, is revenue based. So don't worry about, oh, if I get this loan, will I be able to pay my thing? No, they only take a percentage, not a flat rate. And let me tell you the difference. This says 10. If I'm just giving a number, let's say your return rate is 5%, meaning that every week they're going to take 5% of your revenue and pay it back. There's no figuring out to that. If you made $30,000 that week, 5% of that 30,000 is going back to pay that debt. You can actually work that out. Well, when it pays back, some people say, I want to pay it back every day. So what happens is automatically that 5% comes out of your bank account at the end of the day. You don't have to keep up with anything, actually. Now it's just good business to do it. So just in case there are any mistakes, because like anybody else, somebody pushed the wrong button or put a zero in where it's not supposed to go, then we need to start talking to people and getting things figured out. Well, that's the simplicity of the program. So I love it because it opens up the door to a lot more small businesses. Let's say your business is strong, but you're just going through a tough time. That's the best way to go. Now, we also offer SBAs, Small Business Administration Loans. I love these as well. They're not as flexible as MCAs. They're not as flexible, but they do open you up to a number, but they're just the same thing. Now they take a little longer to get. Sometimes it's about 2 weeks before we can get you funded after you have been approved. And I want to stress, not when you submit your paperwork, but once you're approved. Because sometimes, and this is with SBAs and with MCAs, they may need more information. They may come back and say, I want tax returns. We need a longer history of bank statements. We need instead of just getting your credit scores, we need a credit report. It's a number of things they may ask for. Because in all honesty, even though the program is a little more lenient in their requirements, they are a lot more, they'll dig a little deeper for certain things because they're not just looking at a credit score like traditional banks. They want to know, hey, how strong is this business? They look at your non-sufficient funds, if you've had so many of those, if your account has been in the negative for so long. And let me tell you, I've had guys who've been in the negative for a week, 2 weeks, and this is running a business. They still got an MCA.
Wow.
So even though they're looking at it, these underwriters know what they're looking for, though. They're not just, they literally, and I know this is going to sound like a horrible marketing gimmick. They want to give you this money. They really do. Most of these lenders, they're trying to make it as, I have approved people with a credit score of 500.
Wow.
500 credit score and making 10,000 a month in revenue, but when your credit score is 500, you're done. I can't think of a bank that'll look at you. I have lenders that are like 500, all the scores above 500, 500 or above. Yes, send over the paperwork because they are looking to help you,
Yeah.
and that's why um, I love this business because that's what I'm looking to do. We also offer credit card processing. We offer lower rates than most others, and I think for me, that's where it actually is a consumer. Um, it's on the consumer to benefit from that because most places, where people know it or not, that little surcharge, that's to pay for that credit card processing that they have to pay for. So they have to offset some of that money. So they pass it on to the customer. When you get to a point where you can save money as a business owner in passing that price on, some of them don't even pass the price on because they're like, this is perfect. We can pay for this. It doesn't hurt us. And we can pass the savings on to our consumers. So the credit card processing, that's another big one. For the businesses that I primarily deal with are restaurants, hospitality industry, and the cannabis industry. For these three, equipment is a huge thing. So we offer equipment financing. If let's say you're trying to do a food truck and your oven in your food truck is shot, your refrigerator doesn't cool, to the 47 to the 42 degrees that it's supposed to be, for all meat and chicken and things like that, you're going to need that equipment. Well, what if you don't have that money in a bulk? Listen, you don't have that money sitting in a bank somewhere. We offer equipment financing so you can actually get that and build up your food truck. We've had people actually buy food trucks because they're like, okay, well, I don't have the money for this and don't have the money for this. They bought a food truck. So, and that's great for certain restaurants because they may want to reach a different demographic or might want to reach out to different communities. So if a restaurant buys a food truck, we can help them out. And that's another service that we offer.
Yeah, I have a lot of
Um,
friends who have food trucks and like food businesses that are just getting started, or I might have to refer them out to you, or at least talk to you because you could help them out.
Bring them, bring them, bring them. I will gladly accept.
Yes.
Um, it's kind of in my blood. My mother did low income housing and a beauty salon. She had a thrift store. The idea of just helping people, everybody can't go everywhere and spend their whole paycheck on something. It's not feasible. So I love the fact that I'm able to help people who, you know, usually of no fault of their own, their business just isn't producing what they need it to. And everybody needs that little help. And when traditional banks are like, no, we don't want to take a risk on you, I say, please come to Met Solutions. We will have your business needs met, period.
There you
We
go.
definitely will. We will have your business needs met. That's a phrase that comes from my mother. She would always say, you got to meet the need of the people, and she would say, you have to meet the demands, and my mother was a very, very God fearing woman. And she would say, I want to meet whatever challenge God has put before me. So that always rang in my head. And I was like, no, this is Met Solutions. We're on the other side of that. Not just gonna meet it, it's gonna be met. And so that's why I tell people, have your business needs met with us.
That's awesome.
You know,
So do you just help local businesses, or is this like across the country type of thing?
actually international. I
Okay.
can help. I have been. Well, I can help people in the UK, Canada, and Australia.
Okay.
So, and is nationwide here. So, like I said, for some of your listeners that are in the UK or that are in Australia or in Canada, we can help them out as well. I work with Canadian lenders, UK lenders, and we also help with real estate purchases as well. So, if you're looking to buy a swath of land, or if you're looking to cultivate a part of land that you already have, um, if you're trying to do that through your business, we can help you there as well.
Wow, that sounds awesome. So you
Yeah.
basically help out all the people that and even the people that do, but it's you try to help out the people that have a harder time qualifying with the big major lenders, and get them creative financing that will help get their business off the ground, and that is affordable and won't put them out, make them go broke, because the repayment is also flexible as well.
Right, right. And one thing I know, and I can say this about the lenders that I work with. If you need someone to work with you, I have had numerous, because once you're approved and you're funded, I'm out of the process. I'm out of it. But I still have people who will come to me. I'm drowning. I can't make the payment. Call them. I can't take my business. Call them. Call them, because they do not make money taking away your business. That's the best way I can put it. They will not make any money taking away your business. They only make money when your business succeeds. And I want people to understand that. The lenders that deal in alternative funding, they make no money taking your business. It is quite the opposite. They only make money. They only gonna make their money back is if they help with you and work with you. And that's with equipment financing. That's with the lines of credit. That's with, or not the credit card processing, of course, but with their MCAs and with the SBAs. They don't make money if they take away from you. And that's with the real estate purchases. They do not make any money taking your business away from you.
Yeah.
They don't make money taking your equipment away from you. They don't make money doing any of that. I've had people doing equipment financing and start falling behind and have to get an MCA. And the MCA made all the difference.
Wow.
So, one solution is not going to fix every problem. So sometimes you may have to come back to us. I've had people that had great standings to go to traditional banking, but they didn't have time to wait for that. Well, in 2 weeks we'll see you again. No, they needed something then, and their revenue just wasn't going to do it. So what do? They came to me. So they were able to get it rectified within a short amount of time, and only took them 8 months to pay it back.
Wow.
Yeah, they have terms from 6 months to 36 months. So, and all those things you can actually work out with the lender. If they may say, we want to do 24 months. Can we do 30? Can we do 36? Because it is, they'll work with you. They'll work with you.
Awesome. Their
So
solutions
that's why
will be met.
They have to have your business needs met. So when you come through us, trust me, you'll have your business needs met with us.
That's awesome. Where can they find you, Mario? Where can they find MET Solutions?
Our website is MMET-Solutions. You can catch me on email, which is mario.ruffin@metsolutions.com. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm on all of it. Okay. So if you pull up MET Solutions, we will be on one of those platforms.
Yeah. And we'll leave all that stuff in the descriptions below.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So anything else you want to talk about real quick before we wrap it up, Mario?
I have a few people that I work with that I would like to give a little bit of a shout out to because they do great work. NAC and Co. Is for NAC and Company. They're a virtual assistance program. They handle everything from lead generation to virtual assistance, accounting, all of it. And they have been great. I work with them as well. And I have a real estate broker that I work with, Ebony Gibson. Her company is Savvy, Pat, and Realtors. They're also great as well.
Okay.
So, and I will make sure their information is at the bottom too, so people can reach out to them because everything, especially NAC and Co. and Savvy Pat, and they're great. They're great people, great businesses, and they're always trying to. Both of them are. They're managed by women. They're female owned or women owned. I don't want to say the wrong term. and great and gracious people. So, and they've helped me in my business too. So I want to make sure I give them their plug as well, and hopefully they get some business from this as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely leave all that in the description below. And I truly believe in Mario and his company. He's already helped me out a lot and the Bliss Seekers out a lot, and we're on that process, which is why I definitely wanted to get him on the show. And yeah, thank you. Any last words for all the listeners out there?
Come to us, have your business needs met. I appreciate you, Isaac, for having me on here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much as well. I just want to make sure I help as many people as I can. It doesn't matter who you are. Please come to me. Let me know, even if you just have questions about things. I have a wealth of knowledge that I can't do anything with right now. So please come to me, and whatever you need, we can have your business needs met.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Mario. I appreciate you. And if you guys are new to the channel, we welcome you. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you smash that like button. Check out all Mario's information in the link below. And as always, follow your bliss.